Intro, intro, intro. Well, welcome to 2018, where I'm back, for now. I've decided that I want to post another video of H.P. Lovecraft to YouTube. I did a reading, I did a recording, and now I'm going to try making a background picture. Last time this worked out pretty well with my picture of Bakrug, the water lizard. Let's see if it works out this time with my picture of Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos. I see in my chat that Draxus is here. I asked him to do some quality assurance on this stream and tell me if things were working out properly, if the stream was streaming correctly, and if the sound was showing up, if anything needed to be recentered. So thank you to him for that. We'll see what happens. Now, on to Nyarlathotep. Got my large palette here. So let's see. Oh, I have the wrong window selected. As for which of his masks I'll be drawing, that's a good question. I'm going to be drawing his mad scientist Pharaoh from Egypt mask, which shows up in the H.P. Lovecraft short story, Nyarlathotep. It's the only mask he uses in that story, so I think we're pretty safe with that. Now, ooh, I'm holding the palette upside down. This first layer, we're just going to start a background layer, and we just want to use this to sketch out a few simple details. I'm not Bob Ross. I can't do this in 20 minutes, but we want Nyarlathotep just sort of there in the middle. Remember, this doesn't need to look good. It just needs to show us approximately where Nyarlathotep is going to be. Allows you to get the proportions right. I considered for quite a while whether I wanted Nyarlathotep to have his hands held skywards to the heavens or downwards towards the earth. Eventually, I chose skywards. Like that. And from the looks of it, the sound's working. If I could get just one more message on whether or not things are showing up on the screen as I draw them, that would be great. Is the window centered? Ooh. Give him some little feet there. Now, you'll note I've only drawn half the arms, so give him some nice joints there. This is just a guideline, so no need to get really fancy with this one. Don't want him to be holding it perfectly even. Like Bob said when I watched him, sometimes it's the imperfections that make something look good. So that's going to be our general outline of him. Now, I don't like where I've put him, so I switch to the mouse, get rid of my stylus, and with our move tool, move him up like that. Now he's a bit higher. I want to put him above the rest of the picture. Oop, wrong layer. There we go. Just like that. We're not using paint, so we can undo our mistakes. Now, this is the first layer. What else do we want? I wanted lightning around him, so let's pick the right tool. Ooh, just like that. And let lightning sort of curve around his hands. Ellipses. Radiate outwards from that. Don't need it to look terribly great right now. We can make it look much better after the fact. Just make the lightning branch out like that. Lightning's gonna be playing back and forth between his hands, so we'll like that. And of course, as always, this layer doesn't need to look exceptionally detailed. This is just a guide. We're not Bob Ross. We can't do landscapes in 20 minutes. Beautiful, beautiful landscapes. But what we can do is use technologies that didn't exist in his time. Cheap computing, open source software like GIMP, or as I've come to call it, Bob Ross Simulator. Now, I'm a bit underwhelmed by the lightning here. I want it to radiate out even further. That's the point of having a guideline. It sort of gives you an idea of whether you've done a good job or not. So let's just sort of extend some of these. There. And I want to build up a radius. Sort of, I'll draw the radius. Just kind of like that. And that's going to be the radius of lightning. But now, here's the deal. We're not going to stick to that. So, going to extend just a little beyond the radius. Or fall a little short of it. Like that. And this will be our guidelines for the lightning. Just like that. Wonderful. Isn't that a nice ball of lightning? It's kind of like the inside of one of those plasma balls you see. Novelty lamps, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't think they looked good. I'm just going to extend one or two a little bit further even. And that'll sort of be our ball of lightning. And then, now, the final bit, we want the shifting and terrifying, unnatural shadows beyond, as is laid out in the story. Just sort of like that. Our shadows will swim around. Maybe this one has a claw, or a tentacle. You can decide. There. More shadows. More shifting, shapeless shadows. And another here. Because the first shadow needs a friend. There we go. And these, ideally, will drive men mad from their mere presence. Or you can make one that instills great amounts of fear and heralds the apocalypse. You decide. I'll name this shadow Steve. Perfect. Alright. And that's our basic framework for the outline of Nyarlathotep. But we've just gotten started. I'm going to start a new layer, and let's name this layer something. Let's say that this one is the frame of Nyarlathotep, so let's see. Edit layer attributes. Layer name is going to be base Nyar. There we go. So this is going to be our base Nyar frame. We can actually start working in color now. I looked up some Egyptian art earlier, because Nyarlathotep is described as Egyptian. This, of course, could be a side effect of the unfortunate tendency of H.P. Lovecraft to make the majority of his villains well, let's just say that H.P. Lovecraft was not known for his racial sensitivity. But you don't have to be known for your racial insensitivity. You can be less racist than H.P. Lovecraft. It's not hard. So, I'm opening a new image with some ancient Egyptian art on it and using the eyedrop tool to get a bit of color for H.P. Lovecraft's Nyarlathotep. Why guess when you can just copy from the original source, right? Alright. I'm putting down the palette for now. I'm gonna do this as mouse work. Makes a big clunk on the mic. Now, let's see. I'm going to get out the, what's this called? The path tool. And, I've made Nyarlathotep sort of small when you look at the full thing, because I'm hoping to make his face rather indistinct and hard to see. There's a reason for this, a bit of a cheat actually. I'm bad at drawing faces, so if I make it hard to see and far away, I don't have to do as detailed a job. Don't tell anyone. Okay. Give him a slightly less pointy head. Oop, that's the wrong node. Oh, there. Okay. So if I just drag it like that for a second, give myself access to that, and there we go. And let's just try stroking that path with the pencil. Boop. And we can, oop. Oh. So somehow, my framework got mixed in with the base Nyar. That's not what I was trying to do, but let's start a new layer and call that base Nyar. There we go. I'll call it real base Nyar. Alright, there we go. And stroke the path. Alright. This time when I fill it in, makes a nice background for his face. Alright. And I'm going to start some more pathing. This stick figure works for his skeleton, so I can make some nice shoulders around that with my path tool. And humans, of course, aren't just perfect slabs of them out a little. And foot should look sort of like it flares out a bit. So when you curve it back around, there we go. Ooh. Here we go. There. And of course this is just the base. We're going to paint over this eventually, so no need to get this part too accurate either. It only needs to be marginally more accurate than the layer below it. This is Bob Ross Simulator, so I've actually been watching Bob Ross recently. He's on Netflix now, and if you're going to do Bob Ross Simulator, you might as well do it a bit like Bob Ross. And in this case, Bob Ross was always big on adding more and more layers. I think you would have liked GIMP, but I could be mistaken. Here we go. There we go. Our final bit of framework for Nyarlathotep. His feet right now are a little tiny and sad, so let's increase those out. That's why we do this with the path tool. It allows us to just sort of correct any mistakes we might have made. There. That looks a bit better. This foot should be maybe a bit longer. And that a bit smaller. There we go. We can stroke that path too. And we've got a, admittedly, a little bit naked Nyarlathotep. Now I'm going to take a risk here. I'm actually going to freehand the neck. Because it's really a small part of the whole thing, and I think I can risk the freehanding. I'm doing this with the mouse, not the stylus. There we go. And I'm probably going to switch back to the stylus for the hair. Now, Nyarlathotep has no hands. I'm not great at arms and hands, but I think we can get it done right here. Get around the stick arms here. Perfect. Now, of course, I'm avoiding the hands right now. That's one. And I'll have to put a hand on the end of that, but that's fine. Sorry, bit of indigestion. Human digestive systems don't work perfectly, you know. Although I'm told our digestive systems are better than a lot of animals. But that's fine. Everyone has advantages. We don't run as fast as cheetahs, but apparently we digest better than them. That looks a bit strange and silly to me, so I'm going to use the Control Z. We don't have to live with our mistakes. There we go. Not in the computer. We can correct them. I'm going to go a little bit off of our guidelines here. Correct. Just little corrections all over. Little corrections until our original goofy fat arm doesn't look quite so goofy anymore. Alright, he's naked. Ooh! Cover the hands in eldritch energy. That's a perfect idea. I'm surprised I didn't think of that. Oh, and thank you for checking on this. I'm glad everything's working. Okay, let's see. Next, I want to put him in clothes. I'm going to do the clothes layer first. Then I'm going to do some hair based on the Egyptian art I saw. And that should be enough detail for Nyarlathotep. Now, he's theoretically a mad scientist, but he's a mad scientist in the 1920s, so I'm going to do less of a lab coat look and more a Nikola Tesla waistcoat look, if that makes any sense to you. Let's just gradually... Let's start with something... I'm going to start with something a little bit off-white. Just, yeah. And that will make his collar... Oh, I made a mistake, and you gotta know how to correct this mistake. New layer. This layer will be his shirt. And you don't have to worry that this isn't going to show up in the background. I'm actually going to bleach it white later. And the reason for that is that the background, when I'm done with it, should be mostly black. Alright, let's see. I'm gonna bring down the scale a bit, make this really fine. Make his collar, which doesn't need much detail. There we go. And this is just a simple white shirt. I'm just gonna cover over his skin, up to his wrists, and down to his waist. I'm gonna give him... There we go. Gonna make this hug his arm much more tightly on this side. That's a bit like a real button-up shirt works. There we go. You're not going to see any of the buttons on this, ideally, because instead of buttons will be... Ooh. There we go. Instead of the buttons of this particular shirt, you're probably going to see a tie covering most of it at the top, and then a waistcoat covering the rest of it. And I can make this line look a bit unnatural and straight because we'll be covering it up later. If you look at Bob Ross doing his paintings, he doesn't cover it up later because he does wonderful paintings all the way down. He's got a wonderful, lovely, soft voice, but that's probably the only part that I can imitate. Alright. Here we go, climbing up his arm again. There we go. Made it to his wrist. And we'll draw in some details there later. You'll notice that the cloth doesn't quite meet the collar there, but that's fine on a real shirt. Sometimes with your perspective, the upper border is going to be above the collar, so that's actually a reflection of reality. However, I've decided I don't like this down here because what he's going to do is he's going to have this shirt tucked into some pants. So I'm going to take an eraser with a hard edge and just sort of erase this bit down here. And I'm gonna make it come just sort of in like that. So it sort of tightens up where the pants are going to be. Because lots of people should be wearing pants. Alright. Now I'm going to switch to pure white. I warned you that would happen. Hex code FFF. And there. He's got a nice white shirt. Maybe we'll add in a few details up near the sleeves. After all, his sleeves should have little endings on them. Like this. There we go. Pretty easy. Putting nice little borders on his sleeves, just like on a real button-up shirt. He's still not wearing any pants, but you'll note I tucked in his shirt just to get ready for that. So let's move on to his pants. His shirt's white, but nothing else is going to be. Let's make his pants a light beige-brown color. There we go. Hex code BF8642. Nice hex code. We'll see if we like it, and if we don't, we can change it. That's the beauty of using GIMP. You can always change what you don't like. So I'm bordering along here, making a nice curve because people aren't flat. And I'm bordering around the outside of his legs. This is where we're going to use a bit more fine detail. There we go. And at the bottom I'm going to flare out just a little bit. They're not tightly bottomed. There we go. Ooh. I'm going to just go up a little bit more than that. Now, when we get up here, I'm going to sort of stop it there. Ooh, make it come about here. Just sort of make a bit of a fold here. Not much of one, but, you know, it's always in the details. And this will be our outline. We'll change the color a bit for the interior. And that's really something you want to do. It's a bad idea to use black outlines on anything but dark gray. You kind of want your outline to match the interior a bit, but not too much. Have a clear distinction, but not too clear. It should be understated, but noticeable to the human eye. There we go. Bringing up his pants on this side. Wanted to hug his leg a bit more closely. There we go. And for now, this is all going to look very flat and boring, but we add more details later. You always remember, add more details later. Okay, so let's lighten this a bit for our base color. Just sort of a... there we go. Hex code B8F5D. Ooh. Gotta get rid of a little bit of the border there. But that's fine. And there we go. Pants. But I feel like we need something more here. So I'm going to get some dark brown. I might redo the feet. We'll see. For now, a bit of dark brown. Let's make it a bit yellower. No, redder? Okay, here we go. So what am I selecting here? Well, I feel like this border between pants and shirt is a bit poor, so I'm going to bolster it up, spruce it up a bit. Cover it up with a belt. We'll just start with a straight band. Oh, there we go. Bring it across. And don't be afraid to use the Control-Z. This isn't art on a physical paper, so there's no cost to backtracking a step and doing something new. This will take just a bit of work to get filled in. There we go. Now when you zoom out, it's a bit better. But let's add something else. A belt buckle. So I'm picking something yellow, and then I'm gradually shifting it a little bit towards the orange, and a little bit towards the black. And when you do that, you get a sort of gold color. And of course, until we, shine it up, it's not going to look terribly great. But we'll just do a simple... No, let's not do a simple belt buckle. This is, of course, the Lovecraft mythos. I think we need to do something a little extra. So I'm on the internet, and I'm going to look up the Elder sign. Here we go. It's basically, if you look at it, a star with a little eyeball in the middle, or a flame. You decide. So the star should be simple. I'll just start with a point, drag it. There we go. Just use the line tool. And like that. Star-shaped belt buckle. I don't quite like that. I think it's a bit too small, so I'm going to undo. I'm going to start a bit higher. And bring it a bit lower. And bring it up there. And over there. Down there. And there. There we go. That's our star. We will, of course, add a bit more to it later, but we don't need too much detail. So, I did too good a job at selecting the color gold. Well, fortunately we have a lot of other colors available to us. Our elder sign doesn't have to be made of gold. It could be made of copper. So let's pick orange. Go halfway between yellow and red. And we sort of drag it to the black and just a little over to the white. Now it's been pointed out to me that there's something here I haven't been paying attention to. The elder sign generally isn't straight, and this is true, so I'm going to do something new here. I'm going to go to the internet, because the internet's a wonderful resource. I've got an elder sign here, and I'm going to copy the image. Let's undo this again. We can do it as many times as we want. I'm going to paste this as a new layer. I've got this big old elder sign here. So we're going to center it over him. Take the resize tool. I want these linked together. Do it as a percent. Let's try 10%. Too big. How about 5%? Still a bit too big. Let's try 3%. Oop. Doesn't want to. There we go. So now, with that, we've got a nice guideline for our belt buckle. Now I've selected a nice copper look for our new belt buckle. We'll shine it up later, but for now we can. Oop. can just follow along those curves. And that does make a nicer elder sign. Now, of course, we don't want to drown out everything else, so I'm going to switch the color to a bit more orange. And there we go. All right, let's erase the little extra bits, and we can go on with this. Sometimes all you need is a little external advice that you can follow when making things better. Alright. So that's Nyarlathotep's belt buckle. I think we've done well there. Of course we'll shine it up later, but for now we can move on to his shoes. Now, I kind of want him to look like he's floating, even though he's supposedly standing on a stage. So I feel like these feet are a little too on a ground for that. So I'm actually going to make them point a little further downwards than they currently do. Let's make a new layer, which I'll call Nyar's New Feet. There we go. And take the old color, I'm gonna just sort of... I'm just gonna go with black for now. Oop. And, I'm gonna make a... Oh! Keeps wanting to slip back there. But I'm just going to take this and try to make some feet that are hanging down there a bit. Remember, the feet are gonna... Don't like that. It's just... Nope, that's too clipped. These are, of course, honking big feet, but when you zoom out again, you might have a different opinion. Now it looks tiny, doesn't it? And that's fine, because we're going to cover it with a shoe. So, I need to think here. Okay, we'll do this one. We're not going to change this as much. This will hang straight down, but this one will just sort of taper off like that. And we want to be careful to give him a nice heel. There we go. His feet are a bit small, but that's fine. We'll cover them with shoes eventually. Let's erase these bits off of the base Nyar. Oop. Gotta be careful when erasing. That's why. So I'm actually going to go to the real base Nyar layer. I'm gonna switch to white and actually just pencil in a bunch of white. It's a very cheaty way to erase something, but it works, and I'm a big fan of things that work. There we go. Like that. Phew. Wonderful. Okay, so we'll just use the eyedrop tool to capture the color. And we're going to change our settings to sample merged so that what we see is actually what we get. Sometimes I switch to sample merged, sometimes I don't, but this is the result. Not bad, I think. Not bad. We'll draw shoes around that later. I'll come back to it. For now, though, I want to put on a tie for this guy. Now, I want my tie to be mostly gray, but with a sort of brown sheen to it. A nice, proper tie. I feel like this collar isn't enough. I'm going to increase the collar size. And in order to do that, I think I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to darken this up a bit, and I'm actually going to draw a chin border. And it's going to be a guideline. I'm going to call it the chin guide layer. And I'm just going to kind of draw it across like this. And that tells us where the neck is. So that's not bad. I'll go back to the Nyar clothes layer. And I just clicked it on and off to make sure I was on the right layer. We've got a naked Nyarlathotep underneath, but that's fine. Everyone's naked underneath their clothes. I'm going to increase the collar height, and this is going to have a bit of an effect because what it's going to do is widen the tie I make. So I'm gonna there we go. And we'll draw in some white there. doing this pixel by pixel. That's probably not the best way to do it, but it's better to do it not the best way than to stall yourself doing it the best way. Alright, let's clean this up a bit. Okay. And we'll zoom out and ask, does that still look okay? I think it looks okay. So, back to our earlier color. I was going to do gray, but I wanted just a little tinge of brown in it. Just sort of like one of those proper gentleman's ties. Sort of shiny brown tinge. And here we go. I'm just sort of in orange, dragging it up carefully from gray. There. That's nice. Okay. So, we can start coloring in his tie. And we want to bring it in a little there. That. Okay. And then just want to sort of flare it out like this, because ties get wider. And we don't actually need to bring it at all past that, because most of this tie is going to be covered up. So I'm just going to give it a stupid little flat end like that. I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm going to fill it in. Yeah. You can just sort of fill it in like this. But before I fill it in completely, I'm going to select a darker shade of this same color. There we go. And that's going to be our outline. It's just sort of going to define where our border is. Alright, if things don't go perfectly, we can correct them. There's no errors that you can't correct. Oop. So let's bring it in here. It's mostly good. Just one pixel off. And that's correctable. And we finish by filling it in. And there's Nyarlathotep's tie. The base of it. Okay, I think we're ready for the waistcoat. I'm going to choose this. Ooh, one moment. If you're planning to stream for a long time, always remember to bring water. All right. I'm selecting a slightly darker shade of gray here. Gonna make a new layer called Nyar Waistcoat. Alright. And the waistcoat, of course, comes around the shoulder and just sort of curves around there. I'm going to bring it back a little. There we go. Make sure it just curves down around the arm. And come across there. The cut's going to bring it down. Down to just above the elder sign, where it will then cut around. Yep, I don't mind if it goes over the belt a bit. It should. Waistcoats don't get tucked in. And then I'll bring it back up. Perfect. Some of this is going to get lost, but that's fine. Around this shoulder, again, remember that the sleeve is going to be curved, and it's a bit asymmetrical, but that's actually what we want. Asymmetrical. It's going to come down around here before coming much further, because we're going to make this the overlapping edge. We'll wipe this edge out. And this will be the edge we put the buttons on. Again, just like that. Perfect. Alright. I'm going to select slightly lighter gray. This time we don't want the sample merged option. Okay. And we're going to wipe out this line here. Lovely. Alright. And I want to give Nyarlathotep a couple of gold buttons here. So again, we start with yellow. That's hex code FFFOOO. There's probably a slightly... Ah, yes. I can actually make it hex code FFO if I want. But we're going to first move it a little bit towards the orange. There we go. That lowers the middle value, the G, as it were. And then we're going to move it a little bit towards black. There we go. And somewhere around hex code CFAFOO, we're going to have our nice gold button color. I'm going to put up the size on my pencil a little. And it's going to look square. That's fine. Actually, let's not settle for square. We'll just take it up a little bit larger. There we go. Those buttons are fine. We don't have to space them perfectly. But we do have to decide how far apart we want them. There we go. And one more. Lovely. Now when zoomed out, you can sort of see the beginnings of Nyarlathotep. I'm gonna do one more bit here before I move on. I'm gonna do his shoes eventually. That'll be the next thing after what I'm about to do, because it's time to do Nyar's hair. There we go. And for this, I'm gonna switch back to the palette. Now, I sort of wanted to base his physical appearance on that ancient Egyptian artwork of that pharaoh, and I kind of noticed that his hair... Ooh, there we go. The hair of the pharaoh just sort of came down around his shoulders. He was a very long-haired fellow, kind of like me. So I'm just gonna... I'm gonna turn off the guides for a moment here. As soon as I can find it. There we go. And his hair's selected. Good, good. So I'm just gonna kind of bring it down around his shoulders like that. And, of course, the hair starts lower on the head. If you look at it, believe it or not, our eyes are about here on our head. So then you've got a bit of forehead here, and the rest is hair. And that is about how we want our hair to look. There we go. And I want some of the hair coming down around and hanging over his shoulders like this. And we can make that end a bit ragged. That's good. We want it to be. But we also want it to flare a bit like this. And that stuff we're going to be careful not to drag over his shirt, because that stuff is actually behind him. Okay, that's lovely. We got a few gaps in there, but we're supposed to. Hair isn't a perfectly solid object. Gonna do the same treatment to the other side. There we go. Give him nice, long, flowing locks, just like that pharaoh I saw. Or, I should say painting of the pharaoh. Oh. There we go. Lovely. And of course, as we know, mad scientists never take care of their hair. There we go. Yeah. Again, sort of want to flare it out here, but not take it over. I'm gonna just extend that a little. And a bit further. And there. I'm gonna just sort of make that part less pronounced. And a lot of this lack of detail should, of course, be covered up when we start doing the lightning, because Nyarlathotep certainly likes his lightning. And driving people mad and foretelling of the apocalypse, which is coming. We all know it's coming. The crawling chaos will overtake us all. Ea Ea Nyarlathotep. An interesting name, Nyarlathotep. If I know my Egyptian correctly, its actual meaning is something along the lines of Nyarlat is pleased. I don't know who Nyarlat is, but I can only assume one of the ancestors of Nyarlathotep. Or maybe a eldritch god. But you decide. Alright. I promised after the hair I'd get to the shoes. I think it's time to work on that. We've got these nice guides for his feet, but I think this guy needs a pair of shiny black shoes. And if those shiny black shoes get lost in the background, that's fine. We don't need a lot of detail on this. I'm once again moving away from the tablet. Oh. And let's make a new layer, and I'm just going to call it shoes. But you can call it what you want. Alright. So, the shoes, unlike the feet, don't have this sort of flaring bit to them, and they come out a bit. They come out a bit. Like that. They surround the feet. There. And I'm going to say that... Come down like that. Let's see how this looks. Not bad. Now, of course, I've left this gap here, but we're not going to see his shoe through the gap. Or his foot through the gap, or I guess his ankle, really. We're going to do something else here. Because I want us to choose a sort of fabric color. And we're going to fill that fabric color in. And that is going to be his sock. Because the mask with 1,000 faces should probably be wearing socks. Of course, not all mad scientists did. And if you read Nyarlathotep, that really strikes me as being what Nyarlathotep was, a mad scientist. More so than any eldritch being. He was a foreteller of doom, with lots of lightning-based technology. Lots of sparks and lightning bolts flying around him. So again, on this one, I'm going to say that the gap is over there, and for the rest, the end of the pant leg is going to cover it. I'm going to bring it out. And unlike the heel, which curves inwards, shoes usually curve a bit like this before harshly cornering into the sole of the foot. They kind of bulge a bit. Shoes aren't as sleek as feet. There we go. Once again, I'm gonna fill that in with fill that in with black. And give them a bit of a sock behind that. There we go. And except for the hands, which I think I'm not going to bother drawing because I'm going to take that advice about covering it up with eldritch bolts of lightning. I think we've got a fairly decent beginning to Nyarlathotep, the base. Now, one of the things we need to know before we go on, because the rest of it is going to be shining and shading and things like that. But and I'm going to try to, oh, you know what? I'm going to try to put in just a little bit of feature here. Not much. Let's just make a new features layer. Facial features. And I'm not great at facial features, but I think we can do a bit here. Let's see. So halfway down the face is about right there. It's 1/4 hair, 1/4 forehead, the eyes, and bridge of the nose. And, oh, I'm just gonna go a little bit to the right of the center and start a bit of shade for the nose, which I'm gonna curve around here. And then halfway, about halfway between the nose and the chin, we get the mouth. And I'm gonna make his mouth sort of flat and featureless for now. We can add more features later. And just add some guide dots really for the eyes. And then I'll just sort of freehand something because this is going to be a really small detail in the end. And of course, if his features are terrible, we can chalk it up to him being an eldritch abomination, herald of doom, harbinger of death, the crawling chaos. Let's just give him some nice blank eyes there and streamline the border a bit. Maybe get rid of the border altogether. Not happy with the mouth. I'm gonna make it a bit narrower. Remember, Nyarlathotep was from ancient Egypt, not from Innsmouth. There we go. And that's sort of nice at a distance. And we'll add a bit of shading and brightness and shine to it later. So for now, I think we'll move away from Nyarlathotep and over to the more anticipated part. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some lightning. I'm going to start a new layer for this, and I'll call it, I'm going to start 2 new layers for this, actually. I'm going to call one back lightning, and the other fore lightning. And the fore lightning will be the giant shiny stuff in front of his hands, and the back lightning will be the, you know, other stuff behind him. Because I do want him to be wreathed in lightning, and that's going to need to be mostly behind him. I'm also going to start one more layer, which I'm going to call background. And this layer is going to spend most of its time off. But before I give it most of its time off, I'm going to take this nice fill and, nope, not merge sample, and do that to it. And of course this highlights some things which I've done wrong. So I'm going to go through each layer and figure out, base Nyar. And that's why you generally don't want to cheat and use the white draw tool as an eraser. That's fine. I can work with this. I'm just going to take the eraser, turn the scale up a bit to about 23, and we can get rid of this. After all, we weren't working on the same layer, so when we're done, the shoes should be perfectly visible. And that's the wonderful thing. You see, I'm turning this off. Shoes are just there, just fine. And of course, you can't see his shoes or his hair right now, but when we make the background lightning, you're going to see it. So let's move the background lightning to the back now. Okay. I'm going to start with the background lightning. So I have to decide how I want to do this, and I think I'm going to start with the pathing tool. Good old pathing tool. Why not? And I'm going to start with the stuff around his hands. So I want these giant rings. This is going to be the back lightning. We're not going to see this bit too much, but I'm going to just sort of loop it around like this. That's going to be our basic. It's going to be our basic lightning. I want it to look very oval. I want it to look like it's flowing around his hands. I want it to look like it's centered on his hands, so I'm just going to take the effort to move this whole thing over a little. I want it centered here. And I don't have to stick perfectly to the guidelines. They're there to help us, not to hinder us. Alright. And there we go. Nice loop around the first hand. I'm going to start a new loop around here. Always remember to drag out your vertices a bit. It gives you a little bit more control over what it looks like. Now, once again, I want this to close in a bit. Just going to drag it a bit like that. Oof. I've been having a good deal of trouble concentrating recently, so right now this is a bit torturous for me. But that's fine. You don't get better unless you challenge yourself. Guess I have to bring this down a bit. And I don't like this one, so I'm going to go to a bit more of an unprecedented step. I'm just going to start deleting this one, if I can. I guess I can't. Well, that's always a risk, but I can fix this. I can fix this. I hope. The ring to be a little bit wider than that, but I also want it to be a bit flatter at the bottom. There we go. Now it's beginning to look all nice. And this isn't a guideline, actually. This we're actually going to work from. We're going to use this to make repeated strokes, and we're going to see how to use these repeated strokes to make some real decent lightning. Okay, so we got our rings ready. Oh no, I want this one bigger. I definitely want this one bigger. That'll work. Bit bigger, bigger. We can go very big. Thank you, Draxus. Glad it's looking good. Oop. Alright, here we go. Nice big loop of lightning. So, how do we make some good lightning from this? We're in the back lightning layer. That's great. So I'm going to start with some deep yellow. And I want this to be the sort of glow of lighting that happens out from this. So in order to accomplish that, I'm going to make it select straight to yellow. Oh dear. Give me a moment. I'll be back in a few seconds. I'm back. That was me forgetting to put the on-air sign on. It's not an actual on-air sign, but, well, let's just say if I don't want this interrupted, I have to take certain precautions. Anyhow, so I've selected a good paintbrush, but I want a fuzzier one, so I'm picking the large fuzzy paintbrush. I'm moving the size all the way up to 10. Looks kind of like that. But I'm going to select our loops. Now, we want to stroke the path, it's true, but we want to stroke it so that there's a bit of transparency. Otherwise, this is actually going to look very terrible. So I'm gonna stroke path. I'm gonna go to the paintbrush tool. I'm gonna go to the opacity, and I'm gonna turn it down to, let's say, about 40%. All right, that should do it. And now I'm gonna go to stroke our path. Want to make sure we have the paintbrush tool selected. Stroke. And I am a little confused as to what that did. We have little balls of yellow all around here. Let me highlight them. Something went a bit wrong with our paint tool, I think. So I'm going to go back to the paint tool. Okay, I see. So I have applied jitter selected. I'm going to deselect that. Opacity is random and hardness is random. I don't want that. So now that we've got that, now we stroke the path. Okay, and we've got these sort of halos of yellow light. However, I regret to inform you that these halos are not big enough. We need slightly bigger halos. So how do we achieve that? Well, that's the largest tool we have, so I'm going to need a larger tool. I have a custom one, but we can't push that all the way up to 10. Let's increase the size a bit. Just a bit more. Let's try about 5. There we go. And that's going to be our first outermost halo. So, stroke. Okay, that's perfect. And we're going to get more light later. There we go. That's what it looks like against the darkness. Okay. So, next, we want to select a smaller tool, and we want it to be a bit further down there in size. But we want to decrease the opacity. So, let's make it about 80%. Still fuzzy, still small, but now when we stroke, there we go. I wanted it, oop, I wanted a bit larger than that, I think, and a bit more see-through. So let's go back to the paintbrush. We can turn the opacity down to 60, and let's turn the scale up to 3. And let's try stroking again. And stroke. Again, I still want it to be a bit more see-through, and so I'm going to turn it all the way back to 40, where we had it at first, and a little bit larger. I'm turning it all the way up to 5. So, this should do it. There we go. Okay, now, I'm going to decrease the size again, this time to about, let's say, 2. And, whoop, what happened? There we go. And stroke again. Cool. Now, here's the trick. We're going to move our tool to the pencil. We're going to select a smaller circle, and we're going to move the scale up, and we're done with yellow. We're going to make it pure white. And what this will do is it'll provide a core for the lightning. Remember to select the pencil before stroking. I don't like that. I'm going to go back to the paintbrush tool for this, actually. Again, it's going to be small this time. Very small. Let's say about 0.5. Okay, but I want the opacity turned to 100. I want this very opaque. And now when I stroke, one sec. You know, that's just still a little too thick, so let's turn the scale down to 0.2. Now when I stroke, oh, is it still? Oh, I'm still in the pencil. That was silly of me. Let's go back to 0.5 and try again. Correctly this time. There's a lot of tools in GIMP. It can be tough to tell which one you have selected. And there we go. That's the base of our lightning. So if we put the background on, that's what it looks like. And I think we got the wrong layer there for the last bit. So I'm going to have to go back and change that. Somehow I got the shoe layer selected. That kind of mistake gets made. Alright. Now, when I deselect, that's what he looks like now. So we've got some nice lightning effects. Little rings of lightning around his hand. And that's going to be the background. We're going to work over it a little bit more when we get to the foreground. Make that lightning look a bit nicer. For now, it's just a pair of neon circles. And we want more than that. So let's get rid of that background, bring back the guidelines, and just start going wild with our path tool. We're going to make lightning transfer back and forth here first. And I spent a while deciding if I wanted my lightning to be curvy or straighter. In order to figure that out, let's go to DuckDuckGo, my favorite web browser, and look up pictures of lightning. Oop, I missed an N. There we go. You can just sort of look at lightning for a while, figure out what it does. It's a bit jagged, but a bit curvy. And I think there's a setting we can use on the path tool to do that. We're going to start with it curvy, but we're going to do something to our tools to make it a bit jagged. So anyhow, but between our two circles of light, we're going to want multiple paths here. We want this to look like a big, strange, tangled mess of lightning. And that'll do for us. We want it to look uneven and kind of chaotic, because lightning is. It never really looks the same way twice. It's got a pattern, but it's not a perfect pattern. So those 4 strands should be enough for between that. And I'm just going to have another strand sort of come off and follow, but just kind of wander off midway through. And it'll have a bit that curves around there. Alright, that's nice. So let's start making some of these bits of lightning now. Like I said, these were just guidelines, so we didn't have to follow them or make them perfect. We could just get them gradually okay, and just sort of branching off each other. Pull it out like that. There we go. Ooh. Let's just... Note I'm not quite following the guideline. You don't have to follow the guideline. The guideline's there to guide you, not imprison you. You just need to kind of use it as an indication of what pattern you want. Sort of like that. These are all the floating sparks around the heads of the people who make them go mad. Prophesying of terrible doom to come. And bringing about the nightmares. Because there are a lot of nightmares in the crawling chaos. There we go. Now the best part about this, you'll remember, maybe, that I was pointing out that you couldn't see the hair on the black background. You can now. The lightning lighting the way. It's not a problem anymore. Alright. And I've chosen yellow lightning here, but if you look online, most lightning is kind of cold and blue. And that's fine. We don't have to be perfectly in keeping with realism. This is a work of horror by H.P. Lovecraft. Realism really isn't on the agenda here. Bit more lightning there. Gonna follow this path out here. Just sort of giving it nice curves. Lightning shouldn't shoot straight. In reality, sometimes it's pretty straight, but that's not the way it looks the best, shall we say. Getting a lot of nodes here, you'll see. It's all going back and forth quite nicely. There's a few bits here that I think we need to flesh out. I'm just gonna... I don't want to leave vast tracts of empty space where there should be lightning. So we're going to try to avoid that. I like how I made that one curve around a little. And this one sort of bridges between two, so that's fine. Don't know if lightning does that naturally. Normally, lightning flows from the from between two different charges. So a lightning triangle is a little unlikely, unless the flow of the current is all going in the same direction, either clockwise or counterclockwise, I guess. So let's make a little bit that sticks out of here like we had earlier. Gives a nice background to the whole thing. Sort of frames Nyarlathotep's face. There we go. This coming down. That's okay. I only really, that is to say, thank you for, oh god, sorry, something in my throat. Thank you for coming on, Draxus. Your feedback was helpful. I was very comforted to know that the sound and video were working. And I'm sure I can watch some of this later to just verify that it works all right. It's kind of relaxing doing it like this. Kind of like leaving yourself a record of the past. And I'm gonna do something a little bit different here. I'm looking at the guidelines here, and I kind of like how how I had the two bits that float around each other. There we go. The lightning isn't a two-dimensional phenomenon, so it's not necessarily a case of the lightning crossing over with itself so much as it is a case of the lightning going behind and in front of itself. There we go. And it's a bit of work doing it this way, but I like the effects, and we can afford to do a bit of work. According to the stream timer, I've already taken 1 hour and 20 minutes, which means I'm already taking 4 times longer than the actual Bob Ross. I'm not as good at this game as he was. Bob Ross Simulator is a tough game for speedrunners. Especially speedrunners who want to get the soft voice achievement. There we go. And we're just gradually bringing lightning out. I'm following the guidelines actually a lot more than I expected to be. I expected my following of the guidelines to be kind of minimal, but in some places I'm almost following them verbatim. It's not ideal, but the reason I had the guidelines like this in the first place was primarily due to the fact that I kind of wanted to get rid of blank space. It's interesting in those paintings. Any time I've been watching Bob Ross, and any time anytime I think he's done and that the painting is awesome the way it is, he keeps adding in something new and making it just a little bit better. So I'm going to try to not stop on this painting until it's, you know, in a good place. And we can drag this down here. Bring that around here. Nice little extra bit. I'm going to extend it out a bit further than I thought I would. There we go. That's nice. And we got just one little more branch to go here, and we'll be ready for our next bit. It's nice when you finish all of the little detailing work like this, and you can finally click on the colors and make it look good. First, you have to tell the computer what you want, though. Computers are bad at guessing that bit. And there we go. And this is that nice little one I extended out a little further than the rest. Because lightning should be a bit chaotic and disorderly. Or, you know, you're probably making it under laboratory conditions. Which, admittedly, Nyarlathotep might be, but I don't think he is right now. Alright. So we're ready. Once again, I'm going to go to hard yellow. And this lightning I want to be a bit softer, so I'm actually going to turn down the stroke level to about 20%. But once again, I want that nice big aura for now. So okay, make sure the back lightning layer is selected. I didn't do that last time. Bit of a problem. Move this up to 6. Well, it's having an effect. Let's turn on the... There we go. Yeah. Okay. So let's do this. Start by stroking the path once. It's going to take a while, and now you'll see we've got this nice background glow. Not as strong as the inner glow of the big circles, but that's kind of how we wanted it. Alright, Woo. That looks cool. Okay. So next, I want to select a smaller brush, because that brush really is too big. I made it for big applications. Now, I'm going to try it 20% opacity again. And that looks fine. It's blurry, so, we don't need it to be perfectly on. But now, we're going to try applying something different. It's time to bring this to the dead white. Let's call it titanium white. And we're going to bring our fuzzy circle down to a size of 0.5. And we want no opacity here. This is going to be straight up white. Awesome, awesome. Now, there's one more thing we want to do. Now we want to apply jitter. And we don't want too much jitter. Let's make that jitter about 0.5. See if that's enough. If it's not, there's always Control Z. There we go. Let's change tools so we can get a good look at that. And I think that's a great lightning effect. But I don't like it. So, let's just turn the jitter down a little more to 0.25. And let's turn the size... No. Let's try 0.25. Let's try a stroke there. Deal with it. I'm going to turn the opacity down to, let's try 80%. And that's the wonderful thing about this. You've got Control Z. That means you can play around with it. And now, you know what? I'm going to do this a little differently. I'm going to make this a bit more yellow. I'm going to turn the opacity down to 60, and I'm going to make just one more stroke. Let's try something at 1.5 in scale. What does this do? Whoa. And now, when I go to white, and turn the scale down to, let's make it 0.4. And the opacity up. Wrong button. Oop, nope. Very wrong button. And I'm going to go back and just... There we go. But I actually want these to be even more so. So I'm going to turn the scale up to, let's say, 0.8. No, that's too much. 0.7. We can do 0.7. I'm going to select loops. I was wrong. 0.8 wasn't too much. I guess I need this thick. Let's go up to 1.2. Does this work? There we go. But you know what? I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to ramp it up even more to 1.6. That's our scale, and there we go. And of course we still can't see his hands, but this is only the background lightning, so we don't need to worry about that right now. I think this has gone pretty well so far. I think that's some fairly decent lightning. So let's select a new layer, foreground lighting, and once again we're going to draw over his hands. This time though, I would like to add... Ooh. Sorry, my voice is catching in my throat a bit. That's why you bring a glass of water to a long live stream, right? Alright. Now, I want these hands to be covered up. So, I'm going to get a nice... fuzzy circle. I'm going to turn the opacity down to, let's say 80%. I want to hide it, but I don't want to hide it too much. So let's turn the scale down now. Let's try 6. 5, and the opacity up to 90. And that nicely covers up his hands in balls of light. And that way I don't have to draw any hands, because I'm terrible at drawing hands. And it's a bit of an odd thing to say, because I know I've done really good drawings of hands before, but they weren't amazing drawings of hands. The proportion has always looked a little bit off. There was a lot of really nice detail in it, though, so it worked. It worked. Alright. The background lightning is done. The foreground lightning is done. So next up, I think we need to make some terrible shadows. Something unspeakable. And after that, we'll work on shading Nyarlathotep, and then we'll be done. And it'll be a bit faster than we previously had. Now, I need to do something. In order to make shadows, this whole thing's going to need to be a little bit lighter, so we're going to have to make it lighter before we make it darker. I'm going to start with black, but I'm going to take a look at yellow. Okay. Yellow is just red and green added together. That is, if you're using the spectral theory of color instead of Goethe's color wheel. If you're using Goethe's color wheel, then of course yellow is a primary color and results in green when added with blue. But we're not. We're using the spectral theory of color, where yellow is the combination of red and green. And that's because that's how GIMP works, and just how hexadecimal colors in general work. You've got red, green, and blue, and you add them in different quantities to make the color you want. Now, I want something yellow, but I want something dark yellow. So, whereas pure yellow for a computer is hex code FF0, or full red, full green, no blue, we want to move it down, 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 until we get something like 330. Yeah, that'll do it. Just gonna put it in manually and put that in the background. Did I put that in the right background? And that's a little too much, though, I think. So I'm going to tone it down even a bit further. Let's do 220. Bring the hex code just a little further down. And it might seem like a bit too much, like I'm making things a bit too bright, but there's a reason for this, and that's because now we're going to be getting into the terrible shadows. And when we get into the terrible shadows, I want there to be something to be a shadow against. So now when we make it black, you can actually see it against the background there. But I'm not putting the shadows on that layer. The background needs to stay as its own thing. I'm making a new layer called Shadows, and Shadows is going to be a top layer. And the reason we're doing that, if you'll notice me putting it in the background, it sort of looks kind of washed out and golden if you do it like this. But if you bring shadows up to the top, pure black whole way through. And that makes it more ominous. So, now we need to decide what we want these shadows to look like. Maybe grasping hands or tentacles. Maybe the faces of the audience. There is, after all, an audience here. We'll see. What do the shadows look like? I think a combination of tentacles and grasping claws should be what we go for. I think that'll do us for the best. So, first I'm going to need a mass of shadow for the terrible things to reach out of. So we're gonna start with our path tool again, because I like the path tool. So I'm just creating a bit of a border here. And the only place the border isn't going to be is at the top, because that's where Nyarlathotep is. And he's the source of our light right now. It's the light of madness as seen in the electrical sparks of his inventions, but light nonetheless. I'm just sort of alternating between up and down here. Spread it out a bit. And there we go. And we can stroke this with the pencil tool. There. And there. We've given it a nice, dark, shadowy border for things like claws and hands and tentacles to reach out of. That's a good start. We're gonna have to shade him eventually. Sort of give him a bit more texture and shine. I'm actually dreading that, but that'll be fine. We'll deal with it when we get to it. Oh. Oof. That popped shoulder probably was audible on the microphone. And it felt good. So, let's start a new layer above the shadows, and we'll call this, the Reachers. And this is just going to be all of the things reaching out of the shadows. And I'll freehand it a little bit. We'll see how it goes. We'll keep trying things until we get a good solid look. I think I'm going to try a claw first. Let's turn down the size. trying a claw first. Let's put it here. I'll just sort of freehand it a bit with the mouse. Some nice, wicked sharp claws. It looks a bit too gnarm. Alright. Time to bring out the big guns. Tablet engage. Oh! I am, as always, going to have to move the mic a little further from myself when I do this. But that's fine. That's fine. My hand isn't the most steady one. It shakes, and it doesn't quite go where I want it to all the time. So that can make my drawing look pretty unsteady and unstable. But that's fine. I've got a computer here. I've got the ability to use Control-Z. So if I make a mistake, I just need to delete it and try again. That's how you get better. So I'm gonna make something sticking out in that direction. Sort of stroke it up here and bring it around here. And as you can see, I haven't made it nearly as sharp as I want. So I'm going to give up on the tablet. It was a bad idea. And I'm going to use my old friend, the Path Tool. Because the Path Tool is awesome. There we go. And that's not quite how I want it to be, so I'm gonna make these curvier, thinner, more predatory. Around into a nice sharp point there. There we go. That looks nice and dead. Ah! And that looks nice and deadly. And more importantly, razor sharp. Alright, next let's try a tentacle. We'll place it about here. Sort of mirror image the claw for a bit of symmetry. Oh dear. Lost my tentacle. There it is. So let's give that a stroke. Oh, gotta remember. Gotta give it a border so that I don't fill out everything. There we go. And we've got a nice little tentacle coming out. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of bumps to the bottom. Make it obvious that it's a tentacle, because tentacles are only smooth on the top. As you know if you've ever sat and watched an octopus. I'll admit, cephalopods are some of my favorite creatures to watch, especially the ones that can blend into their background. Very impressive how they do that. I once saw one try to blend in with a chessboard once. It was a very amazing feat. They didn't copy the squares behind them perfectly, but they did sort of continue a pattern. It's just a kind of odd pattern. There we go. Just making the underside a little more bumpy. This last bump should do. Now you can see it's got that sort of jaggedness. Sort of makes you think of an actual tentacle. That's good. Okay. So we have a tentacle and a claw. I think next I want to put a maw. And let's put it about here. It's going to look a bit like a Venus flytrap's maw, probably, with nice jagged teeth. Sort of getting smaller and smaller towards the base, where the joint is. Yeah. And now, I'm gonna bring it all the way back here, and there we go. And you make the base a little bit line up nice and neat. And that last tooth curves a bit. Make it look like a terrible chomping maw of death. There we go. And this time I'm going to remember, I'm going to bring a stroke like that, and that's just so that when we use the fill tool, it doesn't turn the entire screen black. So you stroke with the pencil, fill with the tool, and you got a little bit of extra stuff to do here. There we go. That's a nice one. Okay. I got all of nature's most terrible little damaging objects. Oh, but what else can we put in the shadows? What else can make these shadows look horrific and unnatural? Because, let's be honest, we need to put a lot more in these shadows to make them intimidating and frightening. One claw, one tentacle, one maw, not enough, not enough. We need more. How about something more unnatural? How about something that just sort of snakes off? We don't even need to know what it is. Kind of like this. It's gonna look almost like a counter to the lightning. But it's not gonna be lightning. I don't want it getting too close to the lightning, though. Lightning is supposed to cast the shadow. It's not supposed to hit the shadow. Whoop. Sometimes you grab the wrong node. It happens. There we go. And I want a few more branches off of this, because what I'm planning to do is sort of make this into a sort of dark, shadowy mist that, well, you'll see. Alright. I'm going to want a larger circle for this one. Let's take it up to 0.5. Test it? No, let's try 0.6. 0.7. 0.8. Let's try 0.8. Okay. That should be good. I'm going to stroke that path. I think I left something wrong in the settings. No? Alright. That's fine. And now, I'm going to just turn up the size. Let's turn it all the way up to 2, 3, 4. What size? You decide. Let's try 3. Alright. And, this is sort of going to wrap around various nodes like that. Just going to have a bunch of spheres here. Like that. Just sort of for the base, I'm just going to bring it in like that. I can freehand this a bit. My hands are unsteady, but they're not too unsteady. I can just sort of it's kind of like Azathoth, as he's normally portrayed, the kind of mist with spheres, except shadowier. I'm gonna make this thicker, even thicker. There we go. So let's call that the Azathoth appendage. That's nice, right? Oh. Well, I still need more things to come out of the shadows. How about here, where I'm going to make a horrible misshapen sphere? Just going to do that by taking a regular circle, dragging it a little. We can turn down the size and just gradually stroke it. Smooth it out like that. Actually, one sec. There we go. Like that. And we don't have to know what it is. It's just sort of vaguely disturbing in a vague sense. What could it be? I don't know. You decide. So we need more things, because, to be honest, this isn't the spacing I want. I want to have lots of little disturbing things here. We need more. Sometimes you just gotta stop and think about what you're doing. I've come a long way since the stick figure at the beginning, but we got further to go. We got further to go. We're 2 hours in. I've taken 6 times as long as Bob Ross. I'm certainly not a speedrunner. If you're wondering what that green bit was, that's me saving it. A little bit of movement in the corner of my eye caught my attention. That was just the stream telling me it was having a bit of trouble, lagging a bit. But that's fine. This isn't a moment-by-moment action scene. We can afford to be a little bit laggy. So what else should we have for a disturbing shadow? Just sort of... Oh, of course. I think I know. I'm gonna get back the tablet for this one. For this one, I'm just sort of going to drag it like that. And we're going to add some small stuff in here. Let's turn down the scale a little. Just sort of pepper it around a bit. Give it the sense of something gradually dissolving. When we're done, you can get the fill tool. Fill in those outlines we made. And we got something new. Like that. And that doesn't look too bad. Alright. So that's one more thing. And I'm just sort of thinking of things to fill it in and judging as I go. Does it look appropriate? Does it not? You know? Yeah. It's always a judgment call, and I'm not always that great with my judgment calls, but that's fine. You gotta make what judgment calls you can, when you can. Do your best, and don't be too worried about failure. All right. Whoa. Sorry, I keep doing things to my canvas on this side, and a few minutes later it will always update on the other side where I'm monitoring my stream. So, you know, do what you can. Do what you can. You know, it took 4 hours last time when I did Bockrug the water lizard, but, but when I took 4 hours on Backrug the water lizard, I took 4 hours because I was carefully going over various details and sometimes getting things wrong that needed correcting. And this one I'm 2 hours in, and it's really less that I have anything that needs correcting, and, well, I mean, I probably do, but it's less that and more that I'm just kind of running out of imagination for things to put on the border, to put in the shadows. So I need to decide what goes in the shadows. Wow. You know what? I think I need more claws and tentacles. Yeah, I'm gonna put a claw here. First, let's turn the pencil scale down. So when we finally stroke the path, it's not going to get all thick and ugly looking on us. I'm gonna make this this particular one just sort of curve out like that. I want this to be sharp again, of course. And you know what? I'm gonna make these fingers just kind of a little too wiggly. Definitely not human, you know? Like probably not any creature that lives on Earth that we know of. Could be Bigfoot. You decide. Just gonna sort of it's nice, sharp, but kind of wiggly and misshapen fingers. Stroke path, and there we go. It's not quite the same as the other one. The other one looked more human, despite the lack of fingers. Oh. And this one just looks a little more terrible, I think. And that's good. That's good. Oh, let's try some more tentacles, shall we? I'm going to put a tentacle up here. And we're going to make this one curve like that. Oop. Gotta be careful with what you select. This one's going to be a bit thicker. There we go. We can stroke that path. Draw a little bit of backing so that... There we go. Just do it like that. And again, like before, we're just gonna put little bumps on the underside. Because tentacles aren't completely smooth and even on the bottom, are they? There we go. That's nice. Just sort of make a little bit of a protrusion. Soft protrusion. The underside of a tentacle should not be smooth. So, just filling in the bottom of the tentacle. That's nice. You know, I've been looking at these, and they're a bit more octopus than squid. You see some of those tentacles, and I don't know, is that the difference between an octopus and a squid? I should look it up. I always like that, but sometimes you see tentacles that have that sort of shovel on the end. And maybe I should try one of those. Sometimes it looks really rough and horrible close in, and then when you zoom out, there we go. And one last bump. Now when we zoom out, you can see there's that sort of serrated, suckered edge. And I like that. I think I can go for maybe one more tentacle. But I'm wondering where to put it. I gotta think this through very carefully. I think I'm gonna put it here. So we'll start with the path tool again. Oof. There we go. I'll bring that up there. There we go. And let's just add a nice little bit here to enclose it and make sure that the fill tool doesn't fill the entire screen. There we go. And once again, let's just zoom in on this shadow. And we can... I'm going to do it on what looks like the top this time. Sort of try to turn the world upside down. But you don't have to. You decide. Make your tentacle look like you want it to look. Just gonna make an extra bump there. Doesn't have to look too pronounced. Just has to break up the surface. Make it look like it's not smooth. There we go. That looks beautiful. Oh, hey Aaron. Welcome to the stream. I've been drawing Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos, for my audio recording of Nyarlathotep. So far, he's wielding lightning and terrible things are coming out of the shadows. Right now I'm working on a tentacle. One side of the tentacle should be smooth, but the other shouldn't be, so I've been putting in some extra bumps. But you can do it how you want. I'm definitely not a speedrunner for my Bob Ross simulator. The stream has been going for 2 hours, and the genuine article could do it in 20 minutes. So... But you don't have to be fast. That's okay. You can take it at your pace. Right now I'm drawing the suckers on the tentacle. They don't have to be very pronounced. It is just a shadow. It just has to give sort of the hint that there are suckers there to the casual viewer. There we go. Like that. You can see the suckers on the sides of the tentacles. That said, I have a question to the audience, now that I have one. I'm running out of things to make protrude from the shadows. I have terrible maws and claws and tentacles and strange, eldritch things. I was wondering, do you have anything disturbing I can make emerge from the shadows? Something with a distinct silhouette? Just gonna check my phone. I got a message. Wonder what it says. Can't tell you. There's privacy issues, I'm sure. And that's what happens when you're streaming to the whole world. Let's see. Messages? Oh. Just have to respond to this, unfortunately. It's a bit urgent, so for the second time on this stream, I'm going to have to step away from the microphone for a few minutes. So I'll just leave this picture here. I'll be back in about 5 minutes, and I'll continue. And as you can see, I already have 2 claws, but I can do a few more. I bet I can do about 3 more claws. We'll try that, 'cause all claws need friends, right? Be back soon. And I've returned to stream. Emergency dealt with. Emergency hopefully dealt with. Okay, yes, emergency dealt with. Now, my suggestion from the audience was claws. I already have 2. I hope they're disturbing, but I'm going to try making more. Because all claws should have friends. We're going to try 3 more. I'm going to start with one here in the sort of pit. So let's take our path tool. And this claw we're going to just make sort of straight on. It's going to just come up here. Like this. It's going to have these nice, long-bladed fingers. And going to curve a little bit, but not too much. There we go. Nice and sharp. And thin. But not fragile. And let's try a 4th. Shadows are clawing at you. You're gonna die now. Probably. That's what happens when the shadows claw at you. Let's just give it a bit of a curve. In like that. And we just sort of want to make it merge with the shadows gradually. And then we can bring our nice lines out like this. Whew. And we just do that so that when we use the fill tool... Oop, I forgot to use the stroke on the path first. Can't do much without that, but when we use the fill tool, now it sticks to the claw. And these are longer, wickeder claws than in any of our other shadows. So while some of the claws are misshapen, this one looks more lethal than the rest. So that's nice. Now, I want 2 more, because, you know, our claws need friends. So our little terrible claw reaching from the shadows, we're gonna have a small one up here. And this one's barely gonna get out of the shadows. So this one's just gonna shoo, go like that. And I'm not even using the path tool for this now. This is just gonna be the pencil tool. And it's gonna curve down like this. That, like that, and it doesn't matter that it looks unnatural because these are supposed to look unnatural. And there, we have a little claw barely making it out of the shadows. Actually, probably a bit longer than this one, now that I think of it. But that's fine. Claws aren't all supposed to look the same. Everyone has different claws. Oh, so I need 1 more. And, I'm gonna make one that, this time, I mean it, only barely comes out of the shadows. And I'm gonna make it here between the terrible biting maw and this tentacle here. I'll just sort of make it gradually come out like this. And that's as far as it'll go. It's just gonna... This one's just gonna have 3 claws. It's not gonna be much of anything, really. This one's very gentle and understated. It's a small claw from a smaller creature. One of God's littler abominations. There we go. Ia Ia Cthulhu Fatagan. Tiny claw. We have 5 claws now. three tentacles, a weird, disintegrating, shadowy thing, a strange, bulbous, misshapen sphere, and something weird that has lots of spheres and looks kind of maybe, I don't know, acidic and dissolving. There are plants that look like that, and they're terrifying, especially with what they do to insects. Speaking of, I appear to have 2 out of 3 carnivorous plants here. Maybe I fear carnivorous plants more than I thought. I don't know. You decide. They're your fears. And your fears don't have to be my fears. If I'm drawing what I fear, trust me, you'll never see spiders. I really like spiders. I think they're cute. Alright, let's see. What do I want coming out of the shadows next? You know, I really like this thing, which looks like something dissolving into it, so I'm going to get out my freehand tool and I'm going to add one between the terrible misshapen sphere and claw number 1. Hopefully I can get the tablet back here without banging anything terrible. There we go. As before, I have to move the microphone a bit further away. Means I have to be a bit louder than before, and that's not ideal for pretending to be Bob Ross. Just gonna zoom in here. I want to see the edge of the shadow, and I want to see the edge of the lightning, and sort of be able to judge my distances. I want the little dots to peter out here, so I'm actually gonna just sort of speckle it. You know what? I'm gonna try something a bit different here. I'm just gonna sort of speckle it all the way to the bottom, and then I'm gonna start drawing the solid shapes. And the idea there is that there will be small clouds of dots coming out of the shadow at the edge. And hopefully it'll look a bit disturbing. This is looking a bit too conical right now, so I'm actually going to, very intentionally, change the angles of things here. I want this to come around like this, and I'm sort of providing myself with a bit of a broken border here. There we go. Like that. But you can do it your way. There. I'm just gonna build a bit of a nook in there. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to turn up the scale a bit. And draw this. Ooh, not enough. Let's turn the scale all the way up to 3.8. Now, we'll draw the larger, broken, shadowy bubbles. That dance so terribly in the lightning of Nyarlathotep. Oop, I'm gonna undo that one. Let's try again. This one will just be coming right out of the shadow itself. A kind of terrible, chaotic bubbling from the deeps. There we go. And we'll have to speckle this a bit more later, but that's fine. We have later to speckle. There we go. That's wonderful. Do about, I want about one more layer of large shapes like this, and then we'll just sort of get incrementally smaller and smaller as we get towards the tip here. Just sort of want this to have a bit of a broken, bubbly look. Something terrifying. Like civilization breaking down. As it ultimately will, leaving behind the broken roads and crumbling buildings of a long-dead species. But your apocalypse doesn't have to leave buildings. You make it your apocalypse. Or apocalypse could be much more violent and terrible. Made that one a bit big, but that's fine. He's the crawling chaos after all, not the crawling order. There we go. Small, 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 small. I need to keep it small. There we go. That's perfect. Drag down the scale again. It's time to fill in the speckling, bubbling void between shadows. The shadows between shadows. And let's just take a break to fill in some of these nature's little frightening things. There we go. Aren't they pretty? They're like the last gasps of a dying planet. There we go. You can do this. Make it all speckled and dotted. Almost. Just gonna speckle this a bit more. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, this might be an emergency. Especially since they know I'm midstream. It wasn't. It was not important. There we go. Just sort of filling in the details here. And I'm just going to turn up the scale a little bit more again. Let's say to about 0.38. I can just fill in the blanks a little here. Because we need a few larger spots. And there we go. Nice, Crumbling. Actually, I'm just going to... Oop, nope, that's too dense. Need to spread out here a bit at the edge. There we go. And we want it a little more dense in here. There. Perfect. There. And that looks like a thing disintegrating. I like it. I'm probably going to keep that one. Oh. Sorry. My wrist's getting a bit tired, so I guess I banged that down a bit loudly. And I'm probably going to need to pick it up again soon. Oh, I do want a few more... Sorry. I keep trying to remind myself not to put my hand in front of my mouth while on the microphone, but I don't always remember. So that leaves us with a lot of stuff, but I want some more terrible things coming out of the darkness. Just a few more. We're finally getting to the sort of the peak of terrible, horrible stuff. We've got a lot more than we did at the beginning. Remember, we started looking like this, so... Well, I mean, if you want to go back to the start, 2 hours, 40 minutes ago, we started looking a lot more stick figure-esque. Now we have an actual Nyarlathotep. Isn't he beautiful? What to make come out of the darkness next? We got 5 claws, 3 tentacles, a terrible maw, 2 strange disintegrating things, a weird misshapen sphere, and something that resembles some forms of carnivorous plant. It's a lot, but we need more. I feel like 3 is the right number for tentacles, so I'm not going to do any more of those. I need something more. What should it be? Welcome back, Draxus. Yes, I've certainly improved on the shadows since you were last here. Any idea what I should make come out of the shadows next? I'm looking for disturbing shapes to make emerge from the shadows and reach towards our mad scientist. And I'm sort of tired of claws and tentacles. Although I could do more. Maybe if things become a bit more crowded, a 4th tentacle would be about right. But what should I do first? You know what? I'm just going to make this bit of darkness here have a beak come out of it. But it's going to be a terrible beak. Terrifying beak. So we're going to start with it looking all smooth and nice. And then I'm going to mess it up a lot. Let's have it overslung like this. And we want it to look predatory, so always remember that predator birds have that nice hook. Oop, I've selected the wrong bit. There we go. Oh, that's right. Hey, Draxus, Aaron's in chat. And Aaron, Draxus is in chat. It's like hanging out again. There we go. So that's a good beak. There. But now we want to make it disturbing, because right now it's just a beak, and birds are cute. So that's not enough. We want to make this beak terrible. So, of course, what better can we do for a beak but add terrible sharp teeth? And we're going to make these like razor teeth. We're going to make these teeth like I put on Bockrug, the water lizard, in my last work. You might remember those. They were just these sharp things that came to points, and when you zoomed out, it looked very disturbing. And that's what I want. I'm looking for very disturbing. And there's not much room to work with, but that's fine. We don't need much room. We can do it our way. We've almost done it. There. And that makes the beak look just a little bit more predatory. Here we are at 100%. So this is what it'll look like in the final product. So that's good. I think we really did need a beak. And you know what? I think that's enough for a fourth tentacle. So I'm going to make a really small tentacle this time. Just something halfway between the claw and the beak. It's just gonna come out for a little inch like that. Tiny tentacle. Little baby tentacle. Again, we're using the path tool, because there's really no harm in cheating like that. I'm going to stroke it and fill it. And like before, as I've pointed out, tentacles are only smooth on one side, so I'm gonna make the top here have the suckers. And you just have to make sort of little bumps. Something to break up the smoothness. Like that. And I'm just freehanding this with the mouse. Give it a bit more like that, and there we go. See it 100%. There we go. It's a tentacle. Still need more. Still want more. This darkness needs to be full of creepy, terrible shadows. So, what do I do next? I've done claws and jaws, disintegrating things. I like the disintegrating things. Maybe a little bit of disintegration. You know what? Yeah. That's going to be here at the topmost upper right-hand corner. I'm gonna I'm gonna get my palette again, and I'm gonna add one more bit of disintegration. So let's try that. Just start by adding little dots. You're just gonna outline the area where you want it to disintegrate. And remember, you want the dots to become really sparse out here. And I sort of want the area to be here. Getting dangerously close to the lightning, but that's good. I want to get dangerously close to the lightning. And here I'm just going to keep packing these bits tighter and tighter. I'm going to make it flare a bit at the bottom here. It shouldn't come down straight. It needs to look uneven and bulbous in some places. With unnatural bulges. That's great. Yeah. And we'll just keep tapping the tablet over and over until there we go. It's filled in. Perfect. And you'll note that the dots are more dense at the bottom than the top. And then I change the scale up to about 0.38. If you heard that on stream, my stomach's apparently growling. But that's bound to happen. So let's see. Just gonna make a strange, terrible shape. There we go. And I can just fill in the shapes here. Like that. I'm going to make another shape here. And remember, we want the shapes to get smaller the further we get away from the start. Because it's disintegrating. And further means disintegrated more. So, it's probably going to be our biggest shape here. And it's not even. Like I said, he's not the crawling order, he's the crawling chaos. Just a bit more of a bulge there. It's a bit too square. So I am tapping it a second time, double tapping if you will, in order to change the shape into something a bit more uneven. I'm going to change the size up to 0.44. It's not enough. 0.5. That's better. And I'm just going to leave it like that. Put away my pen. Zoom out as soon as I can. I really can't use the zoom function while I'm holding the tablet, unfortunately. It's really something that needs two hands. One on the keyboard, one on the mouse. That's with GIMP. Most of GIMP. So there we have it. Moving the mic back here. We have another weird dissolving formless shape. Oh. Alright. I'm going to go back to the path tool and make another. I don't know. Audience judgment time. Do I have enough terrifying things coming out of the shadows, or do I need just a few more to really flesh it out? While you decide, I'm gonna take a look at Nyarlathotep and try to think on this. How am I gonna deal with him? Because the light is coming from a very unusual place here, so the shadows playing across him are gonna look a bit different than ordinary. Because I came for a long stream, I expected a long stream, and I know that long streams mean lots of water, so I brought a full carafe. Alright then. We're going to leave the shadows as is. It's time to start working on Nyarlathotep. Now, as you'll notice, thanks to the advice of Draxus, I haven't had to draw hands. That was some of the best advice ever. I'm going to want some shadows on Nyarlathotep's face and on his clothing, but he is surrounded by light, so I'm going to have to be careful with these shadows. There's multiple lighting sources here, so the shadows are going to be a bit unusual. Some are going to be darker, some are going to be lighter. That's fine. Mostly, shading is coming from up, so that's going to be our main thrust. Some of the shading is coming from behind, so we're going to make him look brighter at the edges, a bit darker in front. Or darker at the edges. Right, because that will increase the contrast with the light. I think we'll do it that way. Alright. So I'm gonna... First thing I want to do, create a filter. I'm gonna go to the right layer. Alright. Nope, that's not gonna do it. Can't do sample merged. Nope, that won't work. I'm still on the wrong layer. I have a lot of layers by now. Let's see, I'm gonna... Oh, there we go. Just need to... And remember, I don't want this too detailed. Because I actually plan to finish this by using the blur tool on Nyarlathotep, potentially making him even more terrifying. There we go. As you can see, his hands aren't part of the equation, but everything else is. So now we take... Oh, I missed a bit. And that's the risk of using these layers. Alright. Now we're going to need to do shading and shining and all that sort of thing. Right, okay, so we have it selected, but there's a pretty big problem, so I'm going to demonstrate this problem by starting a new layer, which I'm going to call shading. And just to test this, because you should, we're going to make a nice big black pencil and there's the problem. Currently we have everything but Nyarlathotep selected, but fortunately GIMP has this nice little option which allows you to invert your selection. And when you do that, now we can only shade Nyarlathotep and nothing else. Okay. So, I need to select a good shading tool. I'm going to start with the shadows and move on to the brightnesses. We'll want opacity. Set to something very low, something like 20. Alright, that's good. Now when we try to shade over him, nothing happens. So, that's why, because the shading layer is too low. Now when we try shading him, stuff happens. That's better. But it's not great. This isn't a good shading tool. Let's move to a softer brush. That's better. A smaller, softer brush, though. And let's change the scale down to something like 1. There we go. That gets darker on multiple uses, so that'll give a nice 3D edge to the whole thing. Okay, I'm liking this. I'm liking this. So this will allow us to get a good start on this, and by using a separate layer, it ensures that if I screw up too badly, I can just start over. Because sometimes we need to start over. Alright, so first, light's mostly coming from the top, so we're going to shade the undersides of things. I'm going to start with a bit of shading on the underside of the... I went too far. Bit of shading on the underside of his shirt. That doesn't have to be too strong, because most of this is illuminated anyways by the lightning. And you'll note we're getting thin at the beginning, and we're just sort of thickening as we get to the bottom where there's a bit more stuff to shade. We're going to repeat that on this side because we got a sort of mirror image of the light coming from that side. And like before, we're just sort of... There we go. And because there's light on both sides of him, I'm going to repeat that with his waistcoat. Which, once again... There we go. Okay. And it's a bit uneven, but that's good. That's good. And I'm going to just click a second time, and you'll note that that darkens it a little further because it's opaque on top of opaque. We'll just kind of do a thin, uneven shading of the very edge. Oop. Gotta keep it thin and even this time. There we go. Just like that. And the shading doesn't have to be perfect. Oop. Just gonna darken it a little further. And push it up a little bit like that. And you get a sort of gradualness about the shading. Like that. And we're going to repeat that on the other side again. That's one of the risks of using lack of opacity like I do. You can end up overlapping and causing a even darker area. But that's fine. The shadows shouldn't be even. The shadows should crawl and creep. There we go. Okay. Remember, we're shading on the undersides, but there's two light sources here, so this is actually going to be a bit of an unusual shade for pants. It's not one I usually do, but we're going to just sort of shade down the... Sorry. We're just going to sort of shade down the inside of his pants. On both sides. And it's not going to be a very deep shade, but there is a lot of light around here, so The illumination's going to be, you know, marginally. There we go. And I'm going to just turn the opacity down even further for a few seconds. Increase the size to about 2. Whoop. I increased it to 20. Extra 0 in there. And I'm going to drag that around for a few seconds. And I don't have to make this very even. It's just a shadow. Okay. So, I'm going to turn the size down to about 0.5 now, because now we're going to do his face. I'm just going to sort of... Oh. I'm going to turn the opacity up to 20 again. We're just going to sort of drag it along his cheeks first. Again, the shading's going to be very unusual here, since the light's coming from both sides. Let's change... And let's turn down the... Let's just sort of shade his nose a little. Mainly on the underside, though. And, just gonna make his, make him a bit darker there. Bit of shadow there. And I'm gonna just add a little bit of shadow here and here. Especially under his hair. There we go. Okay. And he looks kind of terrible right now up close, but that's fine because we're going to do something even more terrible later. Okay. Saving. Always save your work. Because now we're moving on to part 2. Highlights. Gonna... And this is the bit that's going to make things look shiny. Because, like, we've got these buttons, and, I'm just going to turn up the brush size a little. Turn up the opacity to about 40 now. And... I'm not entirely pleased with this, actually. Did I Control-Shift-A? I did, didn't I? Well, that's awkward. Still, I'm working in the interior now, so I'll worry about that later. Just gonna add a little bit of shine to the buttons. We're going to go over them one more time. Right now it just looks like adding pixels to shapes, but that's a great thing when you zoom out. You'll find it has a slightly nicer effect than that. There we go. Shiny buttons. Alright. So I have to be careful with which edges of this star I shine and shade. So let's shine this. Whoop. Let's turn down the opacity a little. Shine, shine, shine. Shine, shine, shine. Shade, 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 oop, shade, shade. There we go. And I'm just going to put a bit more texture there. Now we're going to really shine it. Turning the opacity up to like 40. Turning the scale down a bit, and Just making these nice shiny lines here. And now when you zoom out, it's a shiny belt buckle. Okay. Oh. What else is there to shine? I'm gonna have to carefully re-add some of this stuff. It's pity. That is a good thing. That is a good suggestion. I am going to work on his hair as soon as I finish working on his pants. And his shoes. I need to remember his shoes. Okay. Take a paintbrush. Gonna turn up the size a little. Remember, invert. And, of course, choose the right layer. Alright. These can't be shined, really. But I'm going to try anyways. There we go. Those can be shined. Turn the opacity down to 20. It's all due to the unusual light sources. Oop. I have to use sort of weird shading shapes. Just gonna sort of draw that out a bit. Fill that in there a tiny bit. There we go. Alright. That's his pants. Tie. Then hair. I know I'm putting it off, but that's the way it goes. Let's try 0.2 in size. This should be a glossy tie, probably made of silk. But yours doesn't have to be made of silk. Wear your tie. All right. I'm going to put a little dot there and an extra 2 dots there. And now the tie is glossy if you zoom out. That's nice. It's not great gloss, but it's okay. Now let's see. What next? Yeah, bit of gloss in the hair. So let's increase the brush size a little and turn the opacity up to, let's say 50. Don't want it to look like he's old. So when we zoom out, we might cordially delete and redo this. It sort of gives us an idea of where the hair flows. And you know what? Maybe Nyarlathotep is older. he can be. Nothing in the story specifies Nyarlathotep's age. There we go. Just sort of drag it along there. And this is getting a bit of an interesting effect, I think. Don't have to stay perfectly within the lines in this one. Mistakes aren't going to be noticed very easily. It's just going to keep dragging. Don't want to do too much. Don't want to do too little. Just carefully. I'm just going to really shine his hair in 2 points there. And 1 point here. He looks a bit gray-haired now, so I'm going to reverse the process a little, because you can do that. I'm going to leave the really shiny white spots alone, but let's gray out some of this. Darken it a little. Make him look a little bit younger. There we go. Just like dyeing your hair, except with pixels. There we go. Now we've done his hair halfway. Let's just zoom out and see how that looks. Yeah, that looks better. So I'll do it to the other side too. Again, I'm going to leave the 2 brightest spots alone, because those are going to be the shine, right? There we go. And then I'm going to just sort of drag it down here. Let his hair lose a little bit of that whiteness and go back to being black hair. There we go. Wonderful. I'm gonna just drag that a little bit more down. Bit more darkness. Bit darker. And it's nice and uneven when we use a small brush like this, so it gives you a bit of a chaotic look, and that's kind of what we want. After all, he is the crawling chaos. Get rid of that and that. And there. His hair's fairly black now and has a bit of a shiny luster to it. Just like it's being illuminated by 2 giant balls of lightning. So, yeah, that's cool. Now, last thing to shine, his shoes. I'm just going to turn the opacity right up to 100. These are shiny shoes. I'm just gonna increase the brush size a little. Boom. And another. Same on this side. It's reflecting. I don't like that. It doesn't look quite right. You know, it's reflecting yellow light, so I think the problem is that I'm doing that in white. These are polished to a mirror shine. so. There we go. They should be reflecting the lightning. Yeah, there we go. All right. Just going to put that there like that for everyone to see. And now, the final bit. When I do something truly terrible. But first, I'm going to save. And then I'm going to save as, because with the bit I'm about to do, there's no going back. So, I'm going to have to take the shading. I'm going to have to figure out which layers I want to do this with. Nyar's hair. Facial features. Shoes. New feet. The belt buckle, of course. Waistcoat. Clothes. Chin guide. Real base Nyar. Okay. So. It's a good thing I've saved this as a new thing, because what I'm about to do, it's not something I want to do without having a backup to go to, because this might look terrible, what I'm going to do here. First I just have to keep merging down, down, down. Keep merging. There we go. So now Nyarlathotep is one distinct object. But I want him to be a little more terrifying, and what I'm about to do might not work, so once I'm done it, I'm gonna have to ask for audience approval on whether this is a good idea or something that should be left out of the final version. So here I go. Oh, God. Oh, that looks better than I thought it would, but I'm still not sure if it's an improvement or a deprovement. Oh, audience feedback, please. Gonna just do a little bit more of it to this leg here. Yeah, definitely gonna need audience feedback. I can try. Alright, folks. Time for the Control Z. Alright, I'm back at where I was. So less is more, huh? I'm gonna increase the scale a whole bunch, but... oh, the rate, maybe? Down to 20? Let's see what this does. Okay, okay, I see what this does. So... No, nope, still not good enough. Okay. There we go. So how does that look for the smudging of Nyarlathotep? Okay, okay. I like that feedback because it means I'm going to add one more detail to this before declaring it finished. Oh, I'm going to get out my mouse tool. I'm going to zoom right in, and I'm going to make these eyes just the only thing which is completely unsmudged. There we go. So that, how does that look? Awesome. I hereby am going to save. And, but the real question here, is that going to make an okay background for an audiobook reading of the story Nyarlathotep? If this is a good picture, answer is probably yes. So I'll say I'm going to go with it. Oh right, this is I'm on Windows right now. I keep thinking I have to do things like I'm on Linux. So okay, we'll do this. I'm just going to save it as nyarlathotep.png. And we have our background. So many thanks to Draxus, who joined me on this stream, specifically at my request, because I wanted to know if the audio and the video were working properly, and had less than as many normal ways to check that it did. That's it. If you want to give me feedback, of course, there's always the comment section, but I'm going to shut down the stream now. I might stream something later. Not today, of course, but, you know, in a few days. I recently obtained a new game, so I might do that. It's called Oxygen Not Included. I saw other streamers doing it, and it looks so fun. Anyhow. Thanks for joining me, and as always, outro, outro, outro.